Hi there. Pope Vergara just released a free pattern. It's called the Pope Basic Drop Shoulder Sweater. And why did she release it for free? Because she loves this structure and this style of sweater so much, and she's used it in a lot of her more recent patterns. So she wanted to give people an understanding of what the style was all about. What's great is that this is a great basic that you can use and change to your heart's content and have so many different versions. So first of all, there's this one, which is the remix sweater. So she just, I did mine in Les Dike. I did it with a Surrey silk and with some boucle. We'll talk about each of the patterns in a little bit, but the first thing I want to do is show you some of her patterns that do have this shaping, and then talk about how it is done, as I've started this sweater, the new one, the free one, and we'll get a little bit of a lesson on how this all works. So there's this one, super cozy, super fun. There's Stillness Burns. This one's in Art Yarns Merino Cloud, and it has some detailing at the bottom. But as you can see, it's fairly simple, and you see very well the shaping of it. So it's drop shoulder. So both of these have a drop shoulder, meaning that the line of the shoulder comes somewhere along your arm right here. We also have this one here, which is, I think, Thunder Road, and this one's cables, but also very much the same thing. So now let's look at the way that the construction of this pattern works. All of these that Pope has done are knit top down, and they're very simple and easy to adjust. So I started the basic drop shoulder so that you can see how it's knit. So first of all, you start with the back. Well, you start with a provisional cast on and you knit the back. I'm doing a size 4 so you can see all exactly how it works. You knit in stockinette until you reach, I think it's 10 inches for my size, which is the back. I put everything on hold here just so that I could show you the front, and it gives me a chance to knit a little bit on the back. So you provisionally cast on the number of stitches that you need, you knit down to the back to where the armhole would be, and you put everything on hold. Then you come to the front and you undo the provisional cast on right here, and you start knitting downwards. What's nice about this is that it looks like there's no beginning and no end, so it's a very drapey, flowy type of construction. So you do a few inches depending on your size right here, and then we begin making some increases for the round neck. Once that's done, we put the left hand side on hold, and we do the exact same thing for the right. Once we reach the same length as the left, we cast on some stitches here so that then we can join the two fronts. Now this front has to also reach 10 inches as per my size so that the back and the front are the same. Once you reach that size, then you're going to join in the round and work all the way down. So later, when that's done, you pick up for your sleeves and you work on that as well. So that's the basic construction. So it's super easy. At the end, you come and you pick up stitches for the neckline, and it's easy to do. I still have some of my provisional stitches on hold because these were not used for either of the fronts, but they will be used for the neckline. And there you go. So that's the basic structure of that. For her new pattern, we'll talk about gauge, we'll talk about pattern options in just a minute. So you can see how you could do any kind of motif with this. It's really easy, it's very zen to knit, and just quite a lot of fun. Let's talk yarn and see what kind of yarns we could use for this pattern. In Pope's pattern, she has a section all about yarn. She shows which is her main color. In this case, there's just one color, but there's 2 yarns. Originally she used Walk Tough Sock, and she used a kid mohair. So we can look at equivalents to that. You can look up what the Tough Sock has in yardage, but let's just talk a little bit about the gauge. So by knitting these two yarns together, she's getting a DK weight gauge, and she tells us that. Underneath the little yarn, she writes DK. So we're going to look at suggestions and options that you can use with holding two yarns together. And then I'll talk about how do you get gauge with that by only holding one yarn. This is such a fun pattern that you could knit it in so many different yarns and get different results. So let's talk a little bit about some yarns from Julie Asselin. If you wanted to go with a sock yarn, you could go with Nomade, which is one thing that I really love because it has a lot of yardage. It's really easy to wear, and it's easy to take care of. Once you put the mohair in it, it's going to be hand wash. So make sure you keep that in mind. You can use Nomade. She has a lot of fingerings. You could also use Les Fingering Simple. And this is a 1-ply merino silk that will have an incredibly beautiful drape. I'll show you a few other options. You can use Fino, which is a merino silk cashmere. And you can use, and we have pretty much all of the colors of the mohair that go with Julie's yarns. You could use Les Fingering, which is similar to this one, which is the Simple, but it is plied, so it has a little bit less yardage and has a little bit more structure. Not too much, so you could use Les Fingering. Julie also has a yarn that would just be heavenly to wear. It's called Mélange Fingering, and we have so many colors. I'm just showing you a few examples. And this Mélange Fingering is a merino yak, and you can pair it with the Anatolia. That would just be really gorgeous. One of the fun things about putting mohairs together is that you can get different options and different tones. So for example, if we take this Koigu KPM that's a dark emerald, you can put it with Julie's Alpine to get a little bit of a lighter green, or you could put it with Baumier and get almost the same color, and it would really have a nice effect on that. The other thing is we've got Cautiva, and we can do just like I showed you there. You could go with a paler pink, or you could go with a brighter pink. Each time you are going to mix a mohair with a solid, it's going to take on the aspect of the mohair. So one's going to dominate the other a little more, but depending on which one you want, you would just choose accordingly. So the other thing, so that's a fingering with a mohair. I think it would also be amazing to do it with a fingering and a Surrey silk. It would just be so gorgeous to have all these multicolors. So this is Cousin Burley from Woolerton, and we have lots of beautiful colors. You could put that with a merino or any kind of fingering, and it would just look amazing. If you wanted more of a solid, you could go with Cumulus, and it would have the same effect. So just to know a little difference between the Surrey is that the Surrey is a little bit thicker than the lace, so it's still considered lace, but it's a little thicker. So if you want a heavier sweater, and it's not going to be much heavier, just a touch heavier, a little bit warmer, then you would go for this. If you wanted it with the Surrey, but you didn't want it to be as heavy, you could always use Merletta, which is Julie's lace weight, and it would just have a beautiful drape and be absolutely gorgeous. Just so you know, I'm testing out a new yarn here from Woolerton that's a mix of merino wool, merino, cotton, and alpaca, and we'll probably have it sometime in July. But I just wanted to let you know that these are some of your options of combining yards. So think of a fingering or a sport with a mohair or with a Surrey silk. So if you're allergic to mohair, then you would want to choose a Surrey silk. In the next segment, I'll go over some of the yarns that you could replace so that you only knit one strand at a time. Sometimes we don't want to hold two yarns together for a variety of reasons. One, because we don't feel like having two strands always at the same time, but also because sometimes we just want a different texture or a different feel. Let's review a couple of the different yarns that we could use that would just take one strand instead of two. Remember, your main friend is going to be swatching. Yarns that I know that we can get at 18 stitches to the 10 centimeters or 4 inches and 24 in row length is what I'm going to be showing you now. But of course, you at home will have a different tension and you may need to change your needle. So please make sure to do a gauge swatch. Manchalopi, it would be light, it would be airy, and you would not need very many. So it would be really lightweight, airy. You might need 3 to 4 cakes of this, and I'll talk about how to make the equivalents. So when you look at the yardage that it says, so for example, color A for size 1 takes 850 meters. That means that 850 meters needs to be multiplied by 2 to have 2 strands. So each yarn has to have that. If you're only going to be substituting with 1 yarn, then you only need to have 1 yarn with the 850 meters. So for my size, which is size 4, I usually use a size 4 in Popes yarn and Popes patterns, I'll need 1,275 meters, but only 1 strand. So apart from the fact that you would only need 1 strand, it will also cut down a little bit in cost. Of fingering, you may not need as many balls, but you need also the mohair to go with that. So let's take a look at some of the options. So Tuku Dike would have a little bit more of a rustic feel. So let's talk rustic. So Tuku Dike and Mota would be beautiful in this sweater, and it would just be a really hardy fall pullover. And this one, I would guess you need probably a 5mm instead of the 4.5 that it calls for. But once again, gauge is your friend, and we'll talk about that in some other videos. But these two would work really well. Let's talk about some blown yarns. So Isager Soft, which is a merino cotton, would be beautiful. Amelie, which is just heavenly. So this is silk infused with alpaca, so totally natural. So you could use these two. Also Feli, which is from Ilimani, which is a merino cashmere. All 3 of these would be absolutely beautiful. I would also suggest trying the boucle. Wouldn't this make just an amazing boucle, cozy, almost sweatshirt-like material? It would just be really to die for. What's nice too is the boucle has 240 yards, so you may just need about 6 or so, 5 to 6. I would also go with Lazy Dike. One thing to know about Lazy Dike is that it's super wash and it has 10% silk. So before you do the length, you want to make sure that you block your gauge swatch so that way you know that it's not going to be long and down to your knees when you block it, but just the right length. I love Lazy Dike. It's perfect to wear. It's great. It's machine washable, so super easy to take care of. If you want to give yourself a treat of all treats, I would try, and this is Mélange in the fingering, but I meant to bring it in the Dike. So 1 strand of Mélange in the Dike would be perfect for this sweater. It's a merino yak blend, and ultimately the softest, squishiest, and yummiest of yarns. So these are just a few yarns that I know of that we have in the shop, and we can get a good gauge and would make a really nice drapey sweater for you. So